Hello
Hello
there.
there. Welcome back to Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
This is episode 78 is what we got here. And today we're continuing our watch through of the Revenge of the Sith and the Siege of Mandalore. Today we watched the 25th 5-minute mark to the 50-minute 19-second mark of Revenge of the Sith. And we also watched The Phantom Apprentice, the second episode in the Siege of Mandalore. And we're really excited to discuss both. But before we do, I thought Jake and I had a great little Star Wars experience the other day that I thought we might want to shed some light on. If you haven't seen by our Twitter, Jacob and I, a few days ago, at the time of recording this, we were at Disneyland in Anaheim. We got to experience Galaxy's Edge for the first time. Jacob, what were your thoughts at seeing Batuu, seeing Galaxy's Edge, being on Star Tours again in Tomorrowland, and just being on both the rides in Batuu and Galaxy's Edge?
Man, it was pretty remarkable, I have to say. Obviously I've gone to Disneyland a couple times, living in Southern California, gone to Star Tours, been there, done that, but always great to go on that. For me, very nostalgic. I really love the way it's a stark contrast to it's a very stark contrast to Galaxy's Edge. Star Tours, it's just dripping in that shiny, brightly colored kind of prequel aesthetic. Maybe not brightly colored, but yeah, very very shiny, very nice looking,
And
very
Batuu has that
clean prequel
emphasis.
aesthetic. Yeah,
And
Batu
Batuu
is the exact opposite.
has an emphasis on being immersive.
Yeah,
And I have a quote from you literally right after we got off of Galaxy's Edge right now. Where is it? We traveled through hyperspace so hard that we traveled back in time.
yes, that is what I said. That is what I said after we got off of Star Tours. But I still have a lot of love for Star Tours.
Oh, me
Very
too.
nostalgic. I love the prequel aesthetic. I love how it feels like a throwback to how everything was kind of focused on that side of the game back when I was originally getting into Star Wars. But oh my goodness, Galaxy's Edge. Wow, the moment I walked in there, I knew that this was just something else entirely. I previously said that I wish it had been a different era. That's neither here nor there, though. Obviously, that's just a choice that they made. With them kind of being in sequel mode right now, it definitely makes a lot of sense for this to kind of be cross promoting with the sequels. Um, I previously had wished that it was on a previously established planet, but I have absolutely zero complaints. I mean, whatever you think about Disney and Galaxy's Edge, the way they run things, the one thing I think that is indisputable is just the amount of attention to detail, the granularity, the immersiveness that they put together with the set design, the buildings, all the props. It's incredible. Every last corner feels like it's pulled right off of a Star Wars set. It's pretty remarkable for that. It is pretty darn remarkable. I
Yeah,
never thought that as a little kid, I never thought that we would get something this immersive and insane in our lives. So yeah.
And by the way, for those of you who have not been to Galaxy's Edge, there are going to be some like light spoilers for stuff in this conversation. Just saying. I mean, I know Galaxy's Edge has been around for a few years now, but again, a few days ago was the first time we were there, so I don't want to assume. But like, on Rise of the Resistance, I was thinking walking on that First Order Star Destroyer was life changing. Like, it felt like I was literally walking in the Star Wars universe. I could not believe that.
Yeah. It was pretty remarkable. And I mean, yeah, especially I think I mean the Smuggler's Run was pretty cool, but to me I wasn't that taken by it. It just felt like a slightly evolved version of Star Tours. But oh my gosh, Rise of the Resistance, that was something else. Like they went all out. You could really tell that this was the latest and greatest technology. What do they call it? Imagineering, I think.
Yeah, Imagineering.
Like it really just is.
They
It's really just on another level
they did their due
for rides, I
diligence
think.
with Rise of Resistance.
So it's a lot of fun. I think the rides, it feels a little bit they feel a little bit stilted at times, a little bit goofy, but I think when you're going to Disneyland, when you're at an amusement park, that's kind of what you're signing up for. So yeah, I had my doubts about Galaxy's Edge going into it, but I I came away. I was really impressed. My expectations weren't super high, but they were definitely this definitely exceeded my expectations. I definitely thought it was a great experience. I would definitely go again. Just even to look around, you could spend hours just looking at all the little details of
Yeah,
like the space itself. That to
and
me was the most impressive part of it all.
and also just frankly watching, even if you're not as big of a fan of the characters as I am, which I totally get, but like watching First Order stormtroopers, Kylo Ren, Chewbacca, Rey walk around in broad daylight was remarkable. It was just incredible to see, and they felt like they were in an environment. Instead of them walking around Tomorrowland, which felt like almost a little too shoehorned, to see them walking around Batu made almost perfect sense.
Oh yeah, it was great.
And
It was really cool.
Jacob will recall how I tried to ask one of the first Order stormtroopers if they'd ever heard the great gospel of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. They did not answer me. Rude. I also we also did a bunch of silly things. Jacob got a picture of me trying to do the Luke Skywalker from the Last Jedi thing with the green milk.
Yeah.
Which I haven't posted to Twitter yet, but as of this recording, but like by the time this episode's up, I probably will because I'm a chaotic man.
Yeah. I can't disagree.
I mean,
with
well, actually,
Can't argue
I'm a
with that.
chaotic man, and also look at the shirt I'm wearing.
Hey, I like it.
I mean, no, you don't. You don't have to lie.
I
but
mean, I don't like it, but I like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I like the.
The shirt. Yeah.
I don't like the It's a Last Jedi shirt.
Yeah.
For
Audio.
I guess for everyone who's not on this Zoom as we're recording. So
Yeah.
I may not like the movie, but I like the boldness. I like the statement.
Yeah. Anyway, but should we? Do you have any more thoughts about Galaxy's Edge, or should we just get on to the Revenge of the Sith and the Phantom Apprentice?
Let's jump right into it. Let's do it.
In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin and Obi-Wan come back from the Battle of Coruscant to be greeted as heroes. Anakin is greeted by Padme, who tells him that she is pregnant with his kid. Meanwhile, on Utapau, General Grievous arrives after a stunning defeat in the Battle of Coruscant. Sidious tells him to move all the Separatist leaders to Mustafar. Grievous obliges. Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Anakin has a bad dream, a force vision of Padme's impending death. And Anakin and Padme try to comfort each other as they try to reassure themselves that this dream could not possibly be real. Back at the Jedi Council, the Jedi Council back with Palpatine. Palpatine appoints Anakin as his personal representative to the Jedi Council, seeing as there is an opening in the Council. The Council accepts this, but does not do the other thing they usually do for Council members, which is make Anakin the rank of Master. Anakin is outraged, but eventually obliges. They send Yoda to They send Yoda to the planet of Kashyyyk to meet with the Wookiees to help them fight off Separatist invaders, and they send Obi-Wan eventually to Utapau to try and go after General Grievous. Obi-Wan then tells Anakin that the Council has asked him to spy on Palpatine and report on all of his dealings, which Anakin takes reluctantly. Palpatine asks Anakin to appoint him to accompany him to the theater, where he tells him the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise an old Sith Lord who could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. Anakin is intrigued by this tale and is enthralled. And then we end this segment by Yoda going to Kashyyyk. The first major thing that happens is Padme tells Anakin she's pregnant.
Yeah.
You want me to start talking about that, or do you want to talk about
I just
that?
want to say, first off, if you open up in Revenge of the Sith a freeze frame of exactly 25 minutes, it gives you this really crazy look, as I did. It gives you a really crazy look at Palpatine's entourage. And just the longer you look at their faces, the weirder it gets. I had a very disturbing moment, kind of looking at that and wondering what could possibly be going through their minds because they got some weird mugs. That's all I'll say.
Interesting. Interesting.
Sorry, but yeah, what was your take on this moment? Because
Well, like, look, I understand, and again, I'm not an expert on pregnancy or anything. I'm fully willing to and able to admit that I'm a man and I don't know things about how women get pregnant. But like, even so, while pregnant, Padme had to have could have had a bigger role in this movie other than just kind of standing there most of the time.
yeah, so you think that she shouldn't have been sidelined the way she was?
Yeah, she like it's so like I'm not a huge fan of Padme's role in the other two movies, but at least she's doing things.
Yeah,
What is she actually doing as a character, not as a support character to Anakin, but as her own individual character with her own goals and values in this film? Because I can't think of anything.
he definitely it's definitely a bit of a big downgrade for her. But I
Yeah.
think that as disappointing as it is to not see more of her and see her get a more active role, I think it makes sense in a weird way. Given that the entire game that Palpatine is playing in this movie is basically trying to isolate Anakin from everyone who will kind of keep him um, towards the light side.
Well, yes, I have a few counterpoints to that. First of all, Obi-Wan has his own goals and stories and motivations in this movie, whereas Padme does not.
Yeah, that is true.
Second of all, Padme actually would have had her own story and motivations in in this film, but it was cut.
Really?
Yes, there was actually. So I don't know if you remember this. We did an episode about a few years ago, very beginning of In a Galaxy. I'd say when we were covering Phantom Menace of the prequel deleted scenes. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yes.
One of the prequel scenes alluded to a subplot that George Lucas was looking at, which was Padme meeting with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma because she was afraid about the Chancellor's growing power. And it was basically supposed to show some of the initial seeds that grew to become the Rebel Alliance later on.
That would have been cool.
That would have been great. That would like from everything we know about it, it sounded really good. It sounded like a really interesting idea. And you know, we saw a few of the scenes and it looked pretty good, honestly. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But
That is unfortunate. I think they definitely could have included that, but in terms of her relation to Anakin, I think it makes sense why
yeah.
they kind of kept her out of it, but I do think that there definitely would have been room for, planting those seeds and having Padme obviously I think it would only be fitting if we had Padme, be a part of those seeds. I think you're absolutely right. But I need to question Anakin and Padme's judgment here because Anakin runs up to Padme, they run up, they hug in the giant columns. They're in full view of like 10 people who are standing. They're standing a ways away, but they're there. And God forbid any of the entourage, any of Bail Organa's entourage, just happens to
Yeah.
turn around.
Also, by the way, Bale
they weren't
totally
trying
knew
very
that was happening.
Where really he knew?
I'm not saying it's a canonical fact he knew. I'm just saying like look at him, watch that scene, and tell me he didn't know.
Yeah, and I mean the novelization. In the novelization, like obviously, Obi-Wan in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, he knew a lot more than he was letting on. But I guess that brings me to a question, which is, it seems like a lot of Anakin's behavior, especially in relation to Padme, was kind of, which was problematic, ended up being enabled by people who meant well. What do you think about? Do you think that some of all this could have been prevented, or do you think that it didn't really matter in the end?
Here's what I think about Revenge of the Sith in this aspect of the path of who fails Anakin and how they fail Anakin. And this, we will get to a theme with this. I feel like Palpatine constantly presents people around Anakin with lose-lose scenarios.
Yeah, that's the name of his game.
But
that's absolutely the name of his game.
But they somehow, actually, sorry, Palpatine presents people just in general a lot of lose-lose scenarios with this, but somehow people in this movie have an innate talent for picking the worst options of the bad options.
Oh, they absolutely do. I think
it's a way to say that Palpatine's manipulating this, but also that people are making choices. Because, people are making choices. They're making really bad choices.
There's very poor decision making.
The choices that they're stuck with that are better are not good, but, they're still choosing the worst decisions. The council could have done something, for example, with the whole Anakin Master situation, that was not throw a hissy fit in front of him, which is basically what they did.
I would argue that it was he who was throwing the hissy fit, but...
he threw the hissy fit second. They threw the hissy fit first.
Yeah.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of Master.
I thought they should have done the opposite. I thought they were going to make him a Master, and then... I don't know. That's what I would... Maybe, I don't know, actually, what I would have...
My thing is, especially with that, if we want to talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk about this more later, but, with that, it's look, if Mace Windu wants to talk to Anakin alone, if Yoda wants to talk to Anakin alone, if Obi-Wan wants to talk to Anakin alone, that's something different. But to say that we are doing this only because the Chancellor basically bribed us into doing this, A, and B, we're not even granting the entirety of your request in front of the entire Jedi Council in such a public
it's not the
setting.
Best look for him.
That's just...
Yep. You can see
that is just a public shaming at that point. There's no reason for them to do that. Again, they're presented with a bunch of bad options, and they somehow still choose the worst ones.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, you have anything about Grievous on Utapau, or should we just go on past that? Because that sequence is pretty short, just generally.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that the Grievous's hologram scene, obviously with Sidious, I thought that was one of the highlights of this segment, even though it was very short. Just unbelievably chilling to me. Just the foreshadowing, just how much Grievous, just showing just how much Grievous doesn't know. It made me think back to Grievous and Obi-Wan's fight. I can't remember which episode it is in season 2 of the Clone Wars.
Grievous Intrigue.
Yeah, Grievous Intrigue, when they have that whole thing, and Obi-Wan's like, "You're a pawn, you just can't see it," and wow.
Yep.
I mean, he was right.
Obi-Wan was right. He wasn't completely right because he didn't know who the pawn holder was, but
yeah, he thought it was Dooku.
Needless
to say, it was not Dooku.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Before we leave Utapau, I do have a meme. I've been marking down our memes. I think there were
meme overload.
Meme overload. This segment starts with the 20th meme and ends with the 27th meme. There are 7 memes in this segment. A sharp decline from the 19 in the last one. But still there are 7 in this one. When Palpatine is telling Grievous about his future, vaguely about his future plans, he of course goes, "Soon I will have a new apprentice, one far younger and more powerful." which has been turned into an infamous meme.
Yeah.
Um,
And also just I love the foreshadowing of that moment, even if it's
yeah,
not like, oh, it's not. I know a lot of these foreshadowing moments are not like, oh, they're a super deep moment or it's such a deep reading that has led me to this foreshadowing. I just think it's cool. I just think it's cool
oh yeah,
and
there's a
I love the
great
way
sense of
they
foreboding
yeah.
that this movie has.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Foreboding, just the sense of impending doom.
Yeah,
That's something this movie does
uh,
such a good job of.
absolutely. I totally agree with that. Can we talk about the scene with Anakin and Padme on the balcony?
Oh, this scene is just ah,
So you know
painful.
me, I generally don't like criticizing Star Wars. I don't like harping on things. I'm generally like the devil's advocate in favor of things on this show. I generally have a more positive leaning review on things. Am I right, Jacob? Am I correct in that
Yeah,
assumption?
absolutely.
This scene sucks. Like, there's no other way to put it. This scene sucks. Again, just my opinion, but I can't stand this scene. I can't.
Just like
This.
right after the vision.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no. Before the vision. You
Oh,
are
the
so
only
beautiful.
because I'm so in love. Yeah,
Only because I'm
this one's a
so in
little
love.
rough. This one's a little rough, but
So
I
you're
mean,
saying love has blinded you?
yeah,
It's just horrendous. The dialogue is just bad.
yeah. The dialogue, it's not the prettiest in here. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest. I mean,
And like and freaking like how did we get from Padme as this strong, incredible, like powerful, feisty senator from Naboo or queen from Naboo or senator whatever role you wanted to define her as to Annie, I want to go to Naboo to pick up the baby's house.
yeah, she doesn't get a lot of yeah. It is kind of a shame that we don't get to see that side of her in the Revenge of the Sith. You know, especially considering especially considering like how much her character kind of I guess improves how much of her we see in the Clone Wars. Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. It is a bit of a shame, but yeah, this scene, eh, it's a little rough. But I mean, I kind of am of the opinion that Anakin's clunky dialogue, like it's cringy, but it's also perfect for him because he has a lot of problems fostering relationships. He doesn't really know how to act. When he first met Padme, he said, "Are you an angel?" Granted, he was 9, but still, like between his emotional problems, going back to obviously his traumatic childhood, his attachment problems, grew up in a horrible environment, he lost his mom, everything, and then the Jedi kind of not really. I generally don't think that that Anakin's fall is the Jedi's fault as much as a lot of people do, but still they just don't really teach him to deal with his emotions healthfully or anything or foster good relationships, communicate anything like that. So I think it's kind of perfect for him that we're getting this clunky dialogue because he doesn't know how to act. So
Yeah,
that's part of it. He doesn't really he absolutely doesn't know what to do in this situation. He's like he's 22, so yeah, he's only a few years removed from like being like a kid, being like a
Jacob,
teenager,
I'm sorry to correct you on this. My trivia brain won't let me not. 23.
23. Okay.
Um,
A little worse, but my point still stands.
no, I'm not saying it affects your point at all. I'm just
Yeah.
like I can't.
Oh yeah. 23 then. My bad. 23. I think that still fits his character, where he is a little bit like he's growing into adulthood, but he is a little bit emotionally stunted, you might say, from obviously his upbringing combined with the Jedi.
Yeah,
So I've kind of the acting, the lines, it doesn't really bother me as much because I can like justify it in my mind by just saying by just saying, "Oh, like this is just how Anakin is." Like it's like because of like his upbringing and just it's part of his character. I think Generation Tech did a great YouTube video on this idea. They kind of Alan kind of articulates it better than I can. So go check that out for more on this topic. But yeah, I guess we have opposing, not opposing, but yeah, we definitely have very different viewpoints, Eli. I guess on how we deal with this acting and this dialogue.
About Hayden's acting, I've warmed up to Hayden a lot over the past few years. I've warmed up in this movie. In Attack of the Clones, I still think some of his choices were interesting, to say the least. But I think Hayden actually does a pretty good job at portraying a lot of the conflict in Anakin. I think he actually does really well as dark side Anakin. I think maybe he does a little less well as light side Anakin. But I think that I think that I can see why George picked Hayden based on Revenge of the Sith, not based on New Hope, on not New Hope, Attack of the Clones, but Revenge of the Sith. Definitely, I can see it now. So I'm not as big of an opponent of Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker, as I was before. But yeah, I forgot to mention this part. But Anakin goes to this little therapy session with Master Yoda.
Oh yeah,
which is completely like it does not. I think I like, as much as I love Yoda, I feel like the scene might be a little bit extraneous because it doesn't really tell us anything we don't know yet.
What do you mean?
Well, why do you think, and I'm not like trying to say this rhetorically, I'm trying to ask you, why do you think the scene was included? Because I can't figure it out.
I think just to kind of show that Anakin really is trying, to reach out and to show just that Yoda is aware and just to reinforce that reinforce that point that Yoda knows, and kind of that Anakin is trying, but that the Jedi can't really get through to him, and kind of like he can't really get through to Yoda, and Yoda can't really get through to him because they kind of just have opposing experiences, viewpoints. Even though Anakin is going to Yoda for help, like clearly he trusts him at least somewhat,
Yeah.
That's why I would say.
I can see that. I was just like, this scene felt a little bit extraneous to me, but whatever.
Yeah, it definitely was not the most necessary, but I don't know. I didn't find quite the same issues with it that you did, I guess. Talk about Anakin's vision in the
Absolutely.
aftermath.
I didn't have much for it, so that's why, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, first off, the vision, so chilling, so much more chilling than I remember. Really scary, it really does a good job of bringing across Anakin's fear, even if it just is kind of unfounded. Like, later we hear Palpatine say, like, "Oh, I can save her from certain death." Why is it so certain? What? Why is it that certain? But despite that, it does a really good job, I think. And just the symbolism of I think just this little moment of symbolism where Anakin, he has this vision of Padme dying, and he's like, "Oh God, oh no!" And then he gets up and walks away from Padme and leaves Padme. That's a little bit ironic to me, just given how obviously he ends up force choking her after doing everything that he does to try and save her. But yeah, the whole conversation he has with Padme after that, I know Hayden, obviously we just touched on this, he gets some flack for his acting, for the dialogue, the writing. There's really no one else I could imagine playing Anakin, though. Just, he gets him to a T, I think, to be honest. I've warmed up to it a lot. A young man with not the slightest clue of how to regulate or express his churning chaotic inner life and emotions, and he's just trying to contain them all while trying to make sense of this world, dealing with all the trauma that he's experienced, and getting no support or no emotional support from the Jedi, from the Council, and very limited from Obi-Wan, and now that Ahsoka's gone, obviously none from her. So I actually enjoyed that scene, even if the dialogue is a little clunky at face value. I found a way to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that history is gonna look back better on Anakin, on Hayden as Anakin, especially as we get him in Kenobi and Ahsoka.
Yeah,
I think that his. I'm not saying he's the best actor in the franchise. I'm saying that he has some good subtle nuances that could go unnoticed by people who will just blindly hate him.
yeah. I think they do a very good job of Hayden does a very good job. The directing, it all does a very good job, intentionally or not, of portraying how Anakin kind of, it's always a little bit like he's it's always a little bit this vibe of a error 404, emotions not found. Like he's always kind of lagging behind a little bit, trying to process everything, trying to figure out a good response,
Yeah,
trying to figure out what's expected of him because he has so many expectations placed on him.
yeah. Do we want to get to the Jedi Council?
Uh, yeah, let's do it. The Jedi
Uh,
Council meeting.
I just gotta start.
Yeah, yeah,
Can
go for
I
it, go
just
for it.
do like, um,
Rant all you want. Go for it.
allow disappointment lightly? The council does not. Disturbing is this move by Chancellor Palpatine. You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master. What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master? Take a seat, young Skywalker. And then we get to the second part of that scene, but like, I just needed a second because that entire scene is just so iconic, and half of that scene is a meme anyway.
Yeah, yeah, pretty
Um,
much, pretty much.
and then they talk about Grievous, and then Kiadi Mundi out of freaking nowhere asks, "What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?" He's right. He's a system we can also afford to lose. Go, I will. Good relations with the Wookiees.
It's just
I
like
have.
it's impossible to watch this scene now and actually, for me, I had a very hard time trying to see this scene for what it was
Oh,
because of
100%.
just all the memes being like, "Oh my God, haha!" That's like, "Oh, I've seen that so many
Yeah,
times."
yeah.
Oh my God, I've seen so many variations of this. You know,
My
it's hard.
This scene contains my favorite delivery of a single word in the entire Skywalker saga. The way Anakin just look, and I've exaggerated a bit in my head, but just watch the scene again. If you're watching this ever, watch this scene and notice the way Anakin says "be." It's the greatest thing ever. Yeah, the way he emphasizes, how could you be on the council
Yeah,
and not be a master? It's so good, and I've exaggerated. How can you be on the council and not be a master? I love it so much. It's so iconic to me in my own head. I don't know if you've also seen the many the YouTube the YTPs made of this scene. There's a famous one. It's outrageous. It's unfair. It's unphageous, which I love.
yeah.
And I just like legitimately involuntarily think when I'm watching that scene now, I automatically think in my head, it's outrageous. It's unfair. It's unphageous.
Yeah.
This scene is for me the failures of the the Jedi Council.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, before we even get to Droid Attack on the Wookiees, yeah, I didn't have much. Obviously, this is a very significant moment, but I didn't really have a lot for it. So, yeah, what do you got for this?
It does feel like the Jedi Council very much is talking down to Anakin, which is weird, considering that he is technically one of their members now.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
feels
clearly they're kind of fed up with, I think the Jedi Council's kind of reached their breaking point with Anakin, disobeying the rules and kind of being a maverick. And we saw we saw what where that got them with Qui-Gon. So what happens when you have Anakin who basically takes the Qui-Gon shtick and like multiplies it by 100, you know?
and also wants what Qui-Gon doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And he's supposed to be the chosen one, and they're in wartime, and he's supposed to be this like perfect chosen one, golden boy like warrior general who's gonna like save the whole galaxy.
Yeah,
So they're definitely, I think the Jedi Council is definitely feeling the burn from some maybe some overly high expectations or some misplaced hope.
yeah, absolutely.
But what do you have anything else for this scene? I really wanna know what you think.
You know, I think a lot of, and again, we'll get to this in our next episode. I know this content is in the next episode. We're going to be recording episode 79 of In the Galaxy. But I think a lot about, you're on this council. I think a lot about take a seat, young Skywalker, and I'm sorry, citizen, these matters are for the council only. And
Yeah,
Mace Windu's personal grudges that he holds.
yeah.
Which is not a very Jedi-like thing to do.
It's not.
And
I mean, when I rewatched it, the citizen thing, it kind of like obviously it seemed like he was a little bit burned, but to me it kind of just seemed like he was like genuinely like worried about security and protocols. Say what you want.
we will get to that in our next recording, whenever that may be. It's just it's hard to look at that scene because of the memes, but when you do look at it, you can see the dysfunction of the Jedi Council. You can see, there's that. Obi-Wan says we do not have many ships to spare. When going after Grievous, I'm like, guys, do you really have that many ships caught up in the Outer Rim sieges? You're all like Jedi Masters. Can't and 10 out of the 12 of you are on Coruscant. Can't one of you? I know they eventually send to Obi-Wan. Can't two of you go out and search for Grievous? It doesn't exactly look like you're spread thin.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I don't know. I don't know. It didn't really bother me as much. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah. If you have anything else, I want to talk about the droid attack on the Wookiees.
Talk about the droid attack on the
Unless you have
Wookiees.
more.
Try to talk about the droid attack on the Wookiees.
You're done with the
Yep.
how can this is outrageous, is unfair? Yeah.
Yep.
Droid attack on the Wookiees. It is a system we cannot afford to lose.
Yep.
Now,
The utterly
this was
ridiculous segue of
Yeah.
Kiadi money.
Utterly
that
ridiculous
makes
segue.
that makes no
Um,
sense, but we've all accepted.
Yeah, I think we've all by this point we're all familiar with the conspiracy theory that Kiadi Mundi is actually totally responsible for the fall of the Jedi, and this is part of it because
Well, some of us are, and
he
some
ends
of
up
us
sending
believe that,
Yoda.
and some of us don't.
I don't entirely believe it, but I think it's fun. I will say that.
Okay, I don't believe it at all, and I'm not a huge fan of that theory myself, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's funny, given what we see.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Darth Jar Jar.
No,
it's
but
there,
Jar Jar
you
has
should,
more evidence to it.
I don't know. I mean, you got a few moments there. It's a bit of a stretch, but you got a few moments. But anyway, what about the droid attack on the Wookiees? Now, Legends, as Legends fans may know, this was a great, total geek out moment for me. Because of the Klaatuva Guild, perhaps. In Legends, well, first of all, the Klaatuva Guild is a very cool detail that just makes me love Wookiees and love Kashyyyk even more. In the city of Kerchira, there was a top secret headquarters for the Klaatuva Guild, which was an organization of Wookiee hyperspace scouts and mathematicians and scientists who were for centuries secretly mapping and researching hyperlanes and these hyperspace routes, a select few hyperspace routes known only to them because they discovered them.
Wait.
Yes. Now in Legends, Do you have something?
Wait, the mapping of the hyperspace lanes was also in Legends, right?
Pardon?
The mapping of the hyperspace lanes was in Legends, right?
The mapping of the hyperspace lanes, according to Wikipedia at least, the Klaatuvac Guild and their MO, their thing of mapping hyperspace lanes, that's all canon as well as Legends. However, in
Interesting.
in Legends, the Battle of Kashyyyk was fought because the CIS intelligence heard rumors of these Wookiees who were mapping secret hyperlanes, and they wanted to get these hyperlanes. And both the Republic and the Separatists kind of knew that this could be a possibility, and the Republic was so in Legends it was a system they could not afford to lose because of the Klaatuvac Guild and their hyperspace knowledge that they didn't want
Interesting.
falling into Separatist
I
hands.
did not
We
know
don't
that.
know if we don't know if that's true for canon.
I
It
wouldn't
is
think
not
so in
stated that
canon
this is true. I wouldn't.
because
Yeah, again, I wouldn't think so. But
be,
I think that's such a great moment, and that yeah, that just likes me make Wookiees and Wookiee cult. That just makes me like Wookiees and Wookiee culture even more. It's so cool.
for me it
I think
wouldn't
it's so
make a
cool.
lot of sense in canon because there's already um, another group of a conglomerate of people long ago who knew how to manipulate hyperspace lanes, and presumably by the time of the Battle of Kashyyyk, the Jedi had already dealt with them, and that's the Nihil
Yeah.
in the High
Well, where
Republic.
did where did Grievous? At least in Legends, wasn't there something funky going on with where Grievous got the hyper lane that led straight to Coruscant, allowing him to launch that attack?
I think Palpatine
Wasn't there
just
something going
gave
on
it to
there?
him as
Yeah,
Sidious.
you think Palpatine just kind of gave it?
I think Palpatine just gave it to him as Sidious.
Okay, that's fair. That is
Um,
fair. Yeah, that is
or
something he
maybe
would
he
do.
handed it down to Dooku and then Dooku gave it to him or something like that. I don't know.
I remember something in the Star Wars Atlas, but I'll go back later. We can do a little time machine Eli Jacob from the future thing if we want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, what makes this even crazier is that at least in Legends, it was actually none other than one famous Wookiee, Chewbacca, who gave his part of the Klaatuvac Guild's information to Princess Leia and the Rebel Alliance at the time of the Galactic Civil War, allowing them to gain key advantages over the Empire.
Yeah.
In
Interesting.
Legends, at least, which I
Very
know that just
interesting.
makes me fanboy because I'm a big Chewbacca fan. I'm a big Wookiee fan, so for me that's just too cool.
That is really cool. And I enjoyed hearing about your research on that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Should we move on to Anakin and Obi-Wan's meeting after the council?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Obi-Wan tells Anakin that the council wants him to spy on Palpatine. First of all, I'm calling out the council. I'm calling out Mace Windu. I guess I'm calling out Yoda in this case, even though I love that guy. Mace Windu, Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, all the council. If you have something to say to Anakin, say it to his fucking face, you cowards.
Shots fired.
None of
All
this
right.
like handing stuff off to Obi-Wan. I'm not saying that Anakin is perfect and an angel in this scenario, but the Jedi Council is acting really shady here.
I mean, I kind of think it makes sense given how Obi-Wan says this has to be like an off the books assignment. I think that it makes sense for them to be like, hey, can you just, on the sly tell Anakin? Obviously, it's not a good look for them, and it ultimately does play into Palpatine's hands. But
It's not a good look to them, and it's
I
also
understand their
it also
reasoning.
feels extremely patronizing to Anakin because Obi-Wan used to be his master. So it's almost like so there was that line like why are you asking this of me? No, the Anakin, the council's asking this of you. And although Anakin knows that the council's asking, but it almost feels like Obi-Wan's asking him to do it.
Yeah, they definitely were thinking about that connection.
Yeah,
But
in all the wrong ways. I'm saying.
yeah, I mean, Anakin. I mean, look, I love you, buddy, but man, he is really dumb in this scene. The scene with the spying, how much it just shows how much sway Palpatine has gotten over him, especially given that Palpatine pretty much asked Anakin to spy on the council for him, and he had no problem with it. So I just think it's interesting that already at this point, I guess not already because this is kind of the end game, but we see Palpatine Palpatine has more influence and loyalty from Anakin than the Council does.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that just shows you how far their
Plus, it's
relationship has
very hard.
deteriorated at this
I think
point.
it would be very hard for somebody to spy on Palpatine. Just generally.
Yeah, like he's gonna know everything. He's just that kind of guy.
And nobody's going to sneak up on Palpatine.
Yeah, no one will.
That like he's just too powerful. Um. So then let's see. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah. Again, I largely agree with Anakin. Like again, not for the reasons Anakin does, but like the Jedi trying to spy on a democratically elected leader because he stayed in office a little bit too long. I understand they're doing it for noble purposes, but it still looks really bad.
It's a bad look, but at the same time, like I sympathize with them. Like you can say he's democratically elected, but at the end of the day, clearly there's like he's like going like if you look at the situation objectively, whether you like him or not, like whether people like him or not, like it may be a wartime, but he is going for the power grab. Like you look at everything that happened with all these, the wartime bank deregulations and everything, putting the banks under the chancellor's control. Yeah, Palpatine's like he's clearly consolidating power at this point, and I
Yeah.
think we see a lot of characters who overlook that because they don't care or they like Palpatine or they think they have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also that there's also that idea of Mace Windu says in that. Do you remember there's that scene with the LAAT carryover with Yoda, Mace, and Obi-Wan with a bunch of their random chats, and Mace Windu's like. And Mace Windu says, it's very dangerous putting them together. I'm like, if only you had some sort of role in that, Mace Windu.
Yeah, if only
If only you,
I think, yeah, he clearly feels
it's
like
very
he has no
dangerous
choice.
putting together, then why did you do it? Why did you do it? You did that! You're saying...
This is an example of Palpatine, his ability to put people in lose-lose situations.
Yeah. It's so crazy to me. Let's see, what's the next thing? Oh yeah. Can we get to that talk between Padme and Anakin in in their apartment?
Padme and Anakin in their apartment, yeah.
I want to talk about this one,
Let's do it.
and not to get too much on a political tangent, but like I remember watching this scene when the news of the Supreme Court, with their draft of potentially overturning Roe v. Wade was put out, and the seeming like authoritarianism that radiated to me. And it made, and I also I will say this: the last time I watched Revenge of the Sith before this, the last time I watched some of these scenes was on January 6th,
Wow.
2021, when the Capitol was when the Capitol was stormed by rioters. And it got me thinking, there's a lot of scenes in this film about how democracies could become authoritarian dictatorships. And, the line from Padme, have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side? What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists, and the Republic has become the very evil we've been fighting to destroy? It's poignant. It spoke to me in a specific way. Actually, I just want to read some of my notes here. There's another line that Padme says: "This war represents a failure to listen." I said, number one, Padme would be great at Star Wars in a Galaxy. Number two, she's absolutely right. Very few people in the galaxy at the time, and in our current political system, encourage empathy and listening to others as a strategy for making the change that will do the best for the most amount of people possible. we saw this in episodes like Heroes on Both Sides of the Clone Wars, where Padme and Mina Bonteri had the chance to listen to each other. And then Palpatine, of course, blew the whole fucking thing to the skyline, because that's what he does. But the closest the Republic and the Separatists ever were to peace negotiations was that episode, because two people from opposing sides sat down and listened to each other. And there's a quote that I know Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained uses a lot from George Lucas about how, about how people generally succeed more when they're in groups rather than alone. And the best groups need to listen to each other. And that is what fundamentally broke down in the Republic on both sides of the conflict. And that's how the Clone Wars happened. That's how the Clone Wars ended in its way. Is people could not listen to each other.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely spot on. That obviously makes me, think back very clearly. Heroes on Both Sides, Mina Monteri and Anakin, when he's like, you're starting to sound like a separatist. Like, clearly he is really far gone. There, a lot of them, they're really far gone. And yeah, Padme, so many of these moments where, Padme, she almost sees the truth, where the Republic is kind of falling and crumbling and becoming the Empire, becoming what they hate. I think to me, that's what defines this moment in Star Wars. Revenge of the Sith, these episodes of the Clone Wars that are right near it, is just everyone kind of finding out the truth or coming close to the truth, but just not going far enough or just being a little bit too late.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the themes of democracy turning into authoritarianism here could not be clearer. The whole, I want to shove this scene in the face of everybody who says that Star Wars is not political.
Yeah.
because this one just basically, the whole moral of this scene is that Star Wars is so incredibly political that it's not even funny at some points.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And then we get to hold me like you did by the lake on Naboo, when there was no politics, no plotting, no war, except for there were all three of those things, and I just don't remember any of them for some reason. Padme was a senator, so there was politics, there was plotting to kill her, and there was a war seconds away from happening.
Yeah, it's
I like that scene, but there was not no politics, there was not no plotting, and there was not no war.
Yeah, I think that's just her kind of, just wishing that they could go back to a simpler time. Obviously, they're both under incredible stress. Bad things are afoot. It's the dialogue is pretty funny though. I think obviously not some of the best, almost Shakespearean perhaps. Feels like an old play maybe.
Yeah.
So not George Lucas's finest moment.
I mean, for me, I feel like the Shakespeare, this is a very Shakespearean movie to me in a different way, which is the tragic sense of it. This is written very closely to a Shakespearean tragedy, in my opinion. Oh, yeah. There are inflection points where we can see, where we know the characters can make different choices to make things turn out better, but they never do, because that's why the tragedy has to exist. And it's the beauty and it's the horror of tragedies like Revenge of the Sith and the Siege of Mandalore. And then we gotta talk about the final scene in Revenge of the Sith, and we gotta move on to Phantom Apprentice. Jacob, I want to ask you something. It's a question I've been waiting to ask you for 3 years on this show, so you better buckle up, okay? Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It's not the story the Jedi would tell you. Darth Plagueis was a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful in so ways he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create evil had turned life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying. He could actually save people from death. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some considered to be unnatural. What happened to him? He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing that power, which eventually, of course, did. You see, he taught his apprentice everything he knew, and then the apprentice killed him in his sleep. It's ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself. Is it possible to learn this power? Not from a Jedi. So yes, I've had that whole scene memorized for a long time, because how could I not? That scene is iconic in every single way possible. Frankly, this is... Look, J.J. Abrams has said this is his favorite scene in the prequel trilogy, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorite scenes in the prequel trilogy. Love or hate The Rise of Skywalker as much as you do, I will entirely now, and I'm glad I watched this scene now to give me some clarity on this, I will point everybody who says that Palpatine's return came completely out of nowhere to this scene right here, where Palpatine literally spells out his entire plan.
Yeah.
It was actually, I believe it was Claudia Gray who was on the show, and she's like, yeah, hate the Rise of Skywalker, love the Rise of Skywalker, whatever. You cannot deny that Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, in the opera scene, was basically laying out to Anakin and the audience his plan for returning from the dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that simple. I also love the dialogue before that. This is my favorite part. When Palpatine's trying to figure out if the Jedi are spying on him, Anakin says to him, "I know they don't trust you," and Palpatine goes, "Or the Senate, or the Republic, or democracy, for that matter."
Yeah, so dramatic.
Notice how quick Palpatine goes from "they don't like me" to "they don't like democracy."
Yeah, they don't like me, they don't like you, they don't like democracy. Yeah, he's such a good manipulator.
He goes from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds and makes it sound completely reasonable.
Yeah, he knows how to. It's the thing that he's so good at is he manages to take Anakin. He takes what Anakin is feeling. He takes Anakin's feelings and turns them into. He rationalizes them into a reality. And he says, "No, Anakin, how you feel. This isn't just how you feel. I'm going to validate that. I'm going to make that your reality so that you're going to want to keep listening to me because I'm telling you what you want to hear." That's his whole shtick with Anakin. And unfortunately, it works pretty fantastically. Really successful. It is so chilling. The music is so menacing. The way, obviously, as I said, the way Palpatine manipulates Anakin, it's just I can't say enough about
pulling them strings.
He is pulling them strings. He is the puppet master himself. Wow, the things he does with Anakin, the way he kind of twists his mind. Shout out to Obi-Wan.
Shout out to my boy.
To twist your mind. The way he twists Anakin's mind, it's pretty incredible. It is pretty stinking incredible.
It's revolutionary. We get to see a little bit of Kashyyyk in this in this sequence. I will end our Revenge of the Sith commentary with this. Am I the only one who really hates Chewbacca in Revenge of the Sith? Like, I don't hate the character, but like he really didn't need to be there.
You may be the only one.
That's fine.
I thought it was I don't know. I thought it was a nice cameo, but we'll see.
I would have preferred it as a cameo. It wasn't a cameo because Chewbacca's in there for a good part of that movie.
Yeah.
If he was like a 2-second flash, like there's Chewbacca fighting in the battle, that would have been fine for me. But that he plays as major of a role in this movie as he does not sit well with me. That's just my opinion, though.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, one more thing I want to say though, this final Jedi Council meeting where they decide, where Anakin says, "Oh, Palpatine requested that I go capture Grievous," which is another amazing moment of manipulation, by the way,
Oh
when
yeah,
Palpatine says like, "Oh, you should be the one." Um, Obviously, classic stroking his ego. We've seen that throughout the Clone Wars, throughout the TV show. Gosh, I was going to say, yeah. If the Jedi hadn't sent, what's so ironic is that if the Jedi had sent Anakin to capture Grievous instead of Obi-Wan, or had sent them both, he probably wouldn't have been in the same position to end up falling to the dark side
yeah,
as he does. And I think that this isn't luck. I think Palpatine knew exactly what he was doing. Um, he requested Anakin lead it because he knows the Jedi don't trust him at this point. He knows that they would send someone else,
yep.
leaving Anakin alone on Coruscant with one less powerful Jedi there, and with Anakin even more angry and hurt and distrustful of the Council because they overruled the Chancellor and they overruled him and
Yep.
they didn't send him. That hurts his ego. That reinforces everything he thought, and that reinforces his idea that the Jedi are anti-Chancellor.
And
That reinforces the idea that Palpatine's trying to sell, that the Jedi are plotting against Palpatine and that they're plotting against the Republic.
and
It's
Anakin
such a masterful
himself.
moment. Yeah, Anakin himself too. Yeah,
Yeah. I totally agree with everything you're saying there. Um, I think I wrote this down in my notes, but there is very much a sense, and we will get to this. I think when in our later coverage of Revenge of the Sith, I do get the sense that Anakin feels like Obi-Wan is a better version of him. Sometimes there's quite a bit of jealousy for Obi-Wan. Sometimes I feel like with Anakin
yeah.
that deep down Anakin feels like Obi-Wan is just everything he does. Obi-Wan does it one step quicker, one step better. And there is,
Really? You think? I feel like so you're saying that Anakin is kind of jealous of, or kind of like doesn't, or like looks up to Obi-Wan and thinks that he isn't as good of a Jedi as he is?
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I think.
I think that it's kind of the opposite. I think that Anakin actually thinks that Obi-Wan is jealous of him, but he thinks that he is a better Jedi than Obi-Wan, and he thinks that Obi-Wan is holding him back because he says that in Attack of the Clones.
I think
So I'd
that
argue that it's kind of the opposite.
I think maybe that's projection. Honestly,
What do you mean?
I think that's possibly Anakin trying to outwardly pump up his ego because secretly he does not feel a lot of self-worth. Self-worth.
Really? I feel like a whole bunch of the Clone Wars is just, I mean, maybe some of that comes, I mean, maybe some of that comes from Palpatine, or maybe that some of that comes from Anakin's, like, self-worth. Maybe he does have problems with his self-worth, maybe relating to his upbringing and whatnot. But I think he very clearly he harbors no illusions about the fact that he is one of the Jedi's most powerful and greatest warriors. And he takes that to the very extreme. I think he definitely believes. To me, it seems like he definitely believes that he is more powerful than Obi-Wan. That the Jedi are afraid of his power, because that's what Palpatine is telling him as well. So
Yeah,
he's led to believe that.
I see your point. I'm not sure I necessarily agree, just because of things I'll mention next episode, of course, when we talk about the later sequences. With that, you want to go on to the Phantom Apprentice?
Yeah, let's get into the Phantom Apprentice. In the Phantom Apprentice, we open with Ahsoka being surrounded by Maul's Mauldalorians, as you could say. And he's saying that he was hoping for Kenobi. Why is she here? So she's very confused. They're trying to get information out of each other. There's a standoff, but then Rex and the clones come in. They blast their way in, and Maul and the Mandalorians. What is Maul's faction of Mandalorians called?
We call them the Mandalorians.
Yeah, is there an official name? Because the ones with red armor.
The Shadow Collective Mandalorians or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Maul's Mandalorians. The Mandalorians they flee. Ahsoka and Rex they fail to capture Maul. So they return to the palace. They talk to Bo-Katan. Oh yeah, Ahsoka. There's a hologram call with Obi-Wan. She discusses what she found. She discusses engaging Maul. Um, with Obi-Wan, he tells her they discuss. He's been sent to capture Grievous. Um, then they return. Ahsoka returns to the underworld with the clones. They discover more clones that have been ambushed and executed by Maul. From one dying clone, from the trooper Sterling, she discovers that Maul captured Jesse alive and is interrogating Jesse. We see Maul interrogate Jesse to try and find out information about Ahsoka. Um, and using the information from the clone, Ahsoka goes to interrogate Prime Minister Almec, or Ahsoka and Bo-Katan. They go to interrogate Almec to try and find out what Maul was doing. Almec kind of tells them about Maul's business, what he was up to, and but Almec is assassinated by a Maldalorian.
Not
But
just
right
any
before he
Mandalorian.
dies, who?
Gar Saxon.
Oh, Oh, yeah. He's assassinated. I didn't realize that was actually Gar Saxon.
That was Gar Saxon.
Yeah, he's assassinated by Gar Saxon. Right before he dies, he reveals that Maul was trying to lure Anakin there. Actually, the name Skywalker came to him in a vision, and he wanted to. Yeah, he just wanted Anakin there. That's all we know for the time being. Um, yeah. So then they're going into the throne room. Maul confronts them there. Bo-Katan leaves. Rex leaves. There's renewed fighting. Ahsoka and Maul they get into it. Maul offers Ahsoka a choice to join him. He reveals everything that he knows about Order 66. He says what's happening. Ahsoka doesn't really accept it, and they fight rather than join forces to try and take down in one last shot to take down Palpatine. So they fight. There's some scuffling. They move out. Maul tries to escape, but he ends up getting kind of outsmarted by Ahsoka, and she captures him, and he is captured
Republic forces.
by the Republic forces, leaving Ahsoka to wonder, what if Maul was right all along, and what if it was all ruse?
And he's dragged away, screaming, "We're all going to die. This world's going to burn." The incredible nihilistic stuff that Maul does. The fortune cookie of this episode.
For once, he was right.
Yep. The fortune cookie of this episode. Oh wait, we're not doing that anymore.
There's a fortune cookie shape
I
in my
will
head right now, Eli.
remember. Anyway, so it's we start off with Maul and Ahsoka, and there's something about Maul's again, Freddie Prinze Jr. was talked about this in his infamous rant about Maul's Sisyphean nature. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
He's rolling the boulder up the hill, and this time it looks like he's got it, and it looks like he knows exactly what's up. But alas, he just doesn't.
Yeah, he never quite actually knows what's up.
He never quite gets it.
That's a sad truth of it. I mean, here he does. This is the one time that he actually does. To be fair, this is the one time that he is more right than Ahsoka is.
Yeah, but he just cannot convince her because he's Maul.
Yeah.
And he cannot accomplish his goals. And it's almost sad. You know what I mean?
It is sad. Yeah. I mean, I was hoping. I'm not gonna lie. I think this is one of the best Maul stories yet. Everything he actually did on Mandalore, was it really an attempt to just lure Anakin there? And I think it becomes that. I wouldn't argue the whole thing, but everything actually is just him trying to remove that part of Palpatine's plan. But yeah, I'm sad. I'm a little bit sad for Maul, and I'm sad that the Maul Ahsoka team up never happens because two kind of betrayed, rejected apprentices
I don't
on
think that would
opposite
have turned
sides of
out
this
great for
great
Ahsoka,
conflict.
honestly.
I don't know. I think it would have been. I think it would have been cool to see. This is definitely the closest we get to Maul doing the right thing. Obviously, he's a pretty evil guy.
Yeah. I will also say it's
Yeah,
not for the right reasons, though.
yeah. It's not entirely. It's not for the right reasons, but it's also it's better than nothing. So
Yeah.
I definitely I definitely would like to see that team up. I don't think super long term, but as a short term thing, seeing them try to hash out their differences could have been in just in pursuit of a common goal, a common enemy. That could have been interesting. So yeah, but oh my gosh, yeah, this opening scene. Do you have anything? What do you have about the opening scene?
Uh,
It's so good.
other than Maul's like trying to pinpoint the seismic shift, I think the real scene that stands out in the first half of the episode for me is the conversation between Obi-Wan and Ahsoka.
Yeah,
Do you have anything,
those
or
are
should we
great.
move on to that
Oh,
conversation?
I just think yeah, Maul saying, "I wonder if the time is upon us." The fact that he's so right, it's incredible. I love Maul talking about Sidious here, the changing balance of power. This is the tipping point. It's such an amazing sense of foreboding, of inevitable destiny. It's just incredible. But yeah, let's get to Obi-Wan's take on Dooku's death and everything, because that to me, that is a great scene.
It,
What do you got
it,
for this?
it is beautiful, and honestly, this is the best part of the Siege of Mandalore tragedy, because there's that always that sense of you wonder about the what ifs. You wonder what if Ahsoka was given that extra time to talk with Anakin if she wasn't called aside. Could she have cooled Anakin's temper? Could she have offered him some genuine sympathy? Because it's revealed here that Obi-Wan doesn't actually agree with what the Council's doing, and he's asking Ahsoka to talk to Anakin because he thinks she can help him in a way he can't. And of course it never happens, and of course but there's that line from the beginning of the Revenge of the Sith novelization. This is already over. Nothing can be done to change it. It's also happening right now, right here. It's happening as you read these words. It has to go this certain way. Because that is the tragedy of it all.
Yeah,
Of the beats going out this certain way, and of the sad results that we see. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this sense of in this scene, just the sense of suspense and the unraveling the mystery just too late, the looming changes. Man, that's it. Just gives me goosebumps. It's truly heartbreaking. How much the Jedi actually knew, but just found out too late. The fact that and the fact that we know exactly where this is taking place in Revenge of the Sith. Obi-Wan, he even uses the exact same words to describe the Chancellor's actions to both Ahsoka and Anakin. He says the Senate has allowed him to remain in power long after his term has expired. Yeah, it's just it's such a heartbreaking moment seeing really how close they came. What if Ahsoka had just been on that call a little bit longer?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is. It is. It's the truly. It is the truly tragic part of this arc, to say the least. And I know it's one of those things that's better left unsaid, but I have to know what Ahsoka was trying to tell Obi-Wan to tell Anakin for her. I mean,
Yeah. Who
I
doesn't? It's
I
yeah,
mean, it's one of those things that's probably better left unsaid, but still, I want to
yeah.
know.
They got to leave some mystery for the next tie-in, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just yeah, and I love the fact that they have these little tie-ins with Revenge of the Sith where they have some of the same lines, some of the same moments being portrayed in animation too. It's just so we can know exactly when it's taking place. So we just that much more aware of exactly how our hearts are being broken.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I agree with that. And then we see Maul meeting with the Shadow Collective leaders. By the way, did you notice the young Dryden Voss?
I did notice the young Dryden Voss. That was a very cool touch.
Love that
But there
stuff.
also is a little inconsistency here in Dark Disciple. Um, or in Son of Dathomir, this Shadow Collective had already disbanded at this point, and in Dark Disciple, the leader of the Pikes had already been killed at this point. So there are some. Not that it bothers me. I just thought it's interesting to see how they've kind of changed and revised the story slightly.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think they probably just did it because they wanted to and didn't think about the continuity.
Yeah,
The famous George Lucas line, "Continuity is for wimps." Um, I can definitely see Dave having that kind of an attitude,
yeah,
and the entire crew, of course. And there is a line with this. Soon the galaxy will be remade, and in the chaos we must seize what power we can. Which is interesting that Maul describes the Empire's rise as chaotic because I feel like it's anything but. I feel like, ironically, the Empire's rise is one of the most quiet and peaceful things that's ever happened in Star Wars. The Republic
mm,
didn't go out with a bang; it went out with a whimper.
yeah,
This is how Liberty dies with thunderous applause, as Padme says later in Revenge of the Sith. Um,
yeah,
but should we talk about the throne room conversation between Maul and Ahsoka?
yeah. Let's get to it. And
Um,
just through all of this, we're glossing over, the interrogation of Jesse, Maul's speech, but the music through all of this is just,
Unforgettable.
yeah, it's absolutely unforgettable.
It is 100% unforgettable. Um, so a lot of my thoughts on the Maul on the Maul conversation with Ahsoka are going to be taken from the episode I did with Devore from A Large View of the Force, the Theme Between Themes episode we did, where we talked extensively about this. First of all, I cannot not point out that Maul's always in the shadows describing Palpatine, and
Yeah.
Leia's in the shadows always in The Rise of Skywalker describing Palpatine were probably written at around the same time.
Yeah.
Like, that's too good to be true. That's great.
Yeah.
Love that so much. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I love Maul and Ahsoka's talk so much, Maul
Maul pulls the
trying
you're,
to, yeah.
Maul pulls the we're not so different, you and me card.
Yeah, he pulls that. I mean, and he's not wrong. He's not entirely
Yeah.
maybe not doing it for exactly the right reasons, but he's not entirely wrong. But oh my gosh, just the sense of dread, foreboding, destiny, inevitability, all of it, Maul really, it feels like through all of this, Maul of all people who are not, of all people who aren't Sidious himself, Maul might have somehow the clearest view of just what is transpiring.
Yep.
And
And he still
I
doesn't get it
mean,
100%.
yeah, he gets like 90% though. Like
He has a decent.
he's on the money.
Yeah. Um. And there's also, I also feel like there's also a lot of parallels between this scene and the scene between Obi-Wan and Dooku in Attack of the Clones,
Oh yeah,
where the villain
100%.
tells the antagonist tells the protagonist everything they need to know about the plot, but the protagonist doesn't believe any of it, so the movie
Yeah.
can go on.
Yeah. Pretty much.
It's basically the same scene, and I love both of them so dearly. And he does the whole classic, puts out his hand, join me moment. We see it various versions in episodes 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, as well as many other Star Wars things. The whole join me and together we can make things right, we can rule the galaxy, we can blah blah blah. By the way, you have to be self-aware of, but like if I were in the post-sequel era and I was studying galactic history, I would notice how many times people asked other people to join them and how many times they actually did.
Yeah.
Because the
There's a big
success rate
discrepancy
is
there.
not like that successful.
It's not, yeah.
It does not have a very high effectiveness.
Yeah. It does not. But yeah, I mean, it's still just an incredible moment. Maul is like, the Republic has already fallen. You just can't see it. Like, it's yeah. I don't have too much to say, but I can't say enough. I can't say enough good things about this scene. With everything that Maul is saying, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to see Maul get everything right and still Ahsoka basically ignores him with the glass shattering around them is just chilling.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
over the
we got to
top.
talk about the duel now.
Let's talk about the duel. Lauren Mary
Absolutely.
Kim and Ray Park did the mocap for this duel. This is the first ever mocap to animation duel in Star Wars, and they kill it. This
Yeah,
feels
it
like a
is.
live action duel.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think that yeah, obviously, yeah, I could really tell. Like I knew going into it, oh, Ray Park, doing the mocap, bringing back that classic Maul vibe, but I could immediately tell. I feel like it wasn't super obvious, but it was there. That they had a little bit of something extra with this one, and they really just took this duel to the next level. It was an absolute thrill to watch. When you have just the choreography, the motion, the quality of the animation, and the way the animation does the character movement and mechanics, combined with the actual just visual quality and textures. My goodness, this was a sight to behold. And then that final shot, we have the Maul scene. Maul, obviously, one last shouting at everyone about how they're wrong and tinfoil hat. We're all gonna die, even though he was actually right. Oh my gosh,
Yeah, it
just that last shot. Ahsoka looking up to where Maul's ship was, looking at that whole kind of representing that last chance to stop Sidious
that she
that
would.
she refused,
Yeah,
which is not really her fault because it was
it,
Maul. And then you look behind
yeah,
her and there's just chaos and destruction everywhere. It's incredible.
absolutely. I also love the after the post duel thing of die well Mandalorian.
Oh
That
yeah,
Maul says like he's fucking cold. Maul is
yeah,
cold.
he is nuts. Like
Um,
he does not care.
Yeah. Also, by the way, the fact that the whole like balance beam things, whole balance beam duel, and the fact that Ahsoka defeats Maul despite being disarmed and not having a lightsaber, we don't talk about that enough, and we really should. That is a
Yeah,
goat move right there. Like she is an incredible character, and that's one of her peak moments.
yeah. This is where when you see Maul, kind of this is where you see Ahsoka really. This is the peak of her. This feels like in many ways the culmination of much of her arc in the Clone Wars, where she is able to stand toe to toe with Maul and just lay it down. And at the end of it, she can even get the best of them all. It was a literal freaking Sith Lord.
Yeah,
And yeah.
100%. Yeah. Do you have anything else?
Um, no, I mean, just over my overall thoughts for this episode. I have to say, I already was a huge fan of this episode. Watching this in conjunction with Revenge of the Sith,
It
this is peak Star Wars
it,
for
it
me.
boosts the quality incredibly for me. I don't think this is peak Star Wars for me specifically, but it's undeniably very good for me.
Yeah. I can't get enough of this episode. Obviously, um, I talk a lot about, peeling back the layers and that sense that Star Wars can give you sometimes. And this is absolutely peak peeling back the layers for me. Just it's like everything leading up to Order 66, it's like watching a giant wave. I already used the slow motion metaphor, but I think this one is better because what it really feels like is it's like watching a gigantic 100-foot tall wave in slow motion about to break. And Order 66 is when it finally breaks. And right now it's curling over and it's so close and we're watching it and it's about to break and we're watching every single millisecond of it slow down as it's about to break. That's what this feels like to me. And I adore every single second of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this stuff. I think that's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Next week, or next recording, or next episode, whenever we post it, because I don't think it's going to be quite a week, we are going to be talking about another about 35 minutes of Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars episode Shattered. In the meantime, you can listen to us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you listen to podcasts, we'll be there. If we're not, email us, fwinagalaxy@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @InAGalaxyPod, Instagram @Star Wars in a Galaxy. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps with our visibility. Thank you so much. We announced recently that we are going to do another trivia event with the great Jared the Dark Jedi, Connor Chikiti, and Spencer Simpson. A Nerd Academy Civil War triple threat match. I'm writing the questions. Jacob and I are hosting. It's going to be a blast. We can't wait until we release that with our other episodes. But in the meantime, may the Force be with you. Always.